Today I wanted to try something a bit different. I wanted to take a look at a few of the decks that I've made. I'm starting out with this one in particular because I'm actually giving away this deck to a friend. Hopefully I'll get this video up by tomorrow because I'm actually giving it to her tomorrow. But it definitely won't be uploaded before that. In the meantime, while I don't have any booster packs to open, I thought this might be an interesting way to still make videos about one of my all-time favorite games, that being of course Yu-Gi-Oh! I have this Yu-Gi-Oh! Mouse mat here as well as a bit of a background. But let's get started. Some of you might actually notice, like recently, a structure deck was released called Spirit Charmers. I bought one of them and I made some alterations to it. And I believe that the deck I've created will fit quite well with the person that I'm giving it to. Starting with this card, this one isn't actually in the structure deck. Like I've said, I've made a few alterations to it to hopefully improve it. I haven't been able to test it properly yet, but I think it'll work out. Area the Water Charmer Gentle. And as you can see, if my camera will focus, there we go. It's a nice hollow. Area is actually my favorite of the Spirit Charmer series. And as you can see, it requires 2 monsters, including a water monster, to summon. This is the only link card of the series that I have, so I wanted to start off with that. Next up, Familiar Possessed Hida. This is one of the alternate artworks that came with the structure deck. Every structure deck comes with an alternate version of one of the Familiar Possessed series, I believe. So yeah, this is the fire elemental spellcaster of the series, Hida. Next up, Ausa. I was lucky enough to get this card as well, an alternate version of the Earth version. I'm not actually going over all the effects here. I will be going over a few of the additions that I made to the deck, but not all the effects, mostly because a few of them are quite long. The standard Familiar Possessed area. I'm probably butchering a lot of these names. Familiar Possessed Win. Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. And a second Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. Of course, Dark Doriado. I've played against the standard version of this deck, the unaltered version, outside the Earth Charmer. And when my opponent brought out Dark Doriado, it really changed the odds. Hida, the Fire Charmer. Area, the Water Charmer. Wind, the Wind Charmer. Awakening of the Possessed, Great Inari Fire. I actually really love the artwork in this deck. Like the Familiar Possessed have been on my radar for years, ever since I first saw them. I really like the artwork, the idea behind them being how they play into the different attributes, which is an aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I personally find is sometimes a bit underused. Nefarious Archfiend, Eater of Nefariousness. That's a dangerous looking little beast. But that's definitely one of the reasons why I like it, and seeing how they go from like the Spirit Charmers to the Familiar Possessed and so on is, in my opinion, a really cool way of looking at the Yu-Gi-Oh! Artwork. Awakening of the Possessed, Nefarious Archfiend. And that's actually one of my favorite aspects that I think a lot of people sort of look over in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the Not necessarily the artwork. Fairy Tale Juna, cute little anime girl. But the stories that those artworks tell. Fairy Tale Rella. And then we're getting to the possessed monsters, or I guess the bonded monsters with the spirit charmers. Gigabyte, Inari Fire. Like, seriously, look at this artwork. It's just a very cool looking wolf-like creature with flames all around it. That's just dope. Ranryu. Witch of the Black Forest. Fairy Tale Sleeper. Then we've already seen this one, but again, Awakening of the Possessed, Nefarious Archfiend. But like I was saying, the cards do tell a story, and I think TGS Anime, who definitely doesn't need a shout out from a channel of my size, they did a really fantastic job of actually talking about that story. Raigeki, which I know is tournament illegal, but I'm giving this to a very new player. They won't be playing in any tournaments. And it came with the deck. I feel like taking this card out of the deck would be really mean, because obviously it's one of the strongest abilities that any spell card has, and taking that for myself feels just a bit greedy. Twin Twisters. Spirit Charmers. There you can see all 4 the Spirit Charmers raising their wands. And I think that just looks amazing. Grand Spiritual Art. Ichirin. I think that's how you pronounce it. I always kind of a sucker for magical circles, ritual circles, and things like that. It's one of the things I really loved about Fullmetal Alchemist, for example. Unpossessed. Awakening of the Possessed. Again, there you can see all the Spirit Charmers really well. Of all Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I think that the Spirit Charmers show up in so many of them, because they're their own archetype, obviously, but they're also very much linked to the attributes. Possessed Partnership. You can see the Charmers as well as their monsters. I think that just looks amazing. They're half transformed into the monsters. Reminds me a bit of Witch, I believe the show was called. Like, even if you're, for example, running a water deck, you can just use a card like this and you'll still have some amazing artwork with one of the Charmers on them. Spiritual Water Art, Aoi. Spiritual Wind Art, Miyabi. Spiritual Earth Art, Kurogane. Spiritual Fire Art, Kurenai. Terraforming. I honestly hate this card. To me, I've come across this card on almost every structure deck I've ever bought, and it just feels like it's filler. Like, there's almost always one field spell, and then you get like 2 terraforming cards, which just... I mean, its effect is fine, really, but it's just not that useful of a card, in my opinion. Treble, Sakuretsu Armor. These are definitely some of the cards that I've added. Mystical Space Typhoon, and Call of the Haunted, and of course Mirror Force. And I've added these last few cards because I'm giving this to a beginner who doesn't even know how to play yet, and these feel like cards that would go well in just about any deck. Pretty straightforward abilities, but relatively useful, like bring back monsters, destroy spell and traps, cancel summoning, things like that. that just seems like decent cards to add to a deck, especially for beginners, instead of focusing on like really heavy chains or combos with cards like these. So yeah, that's an altered version of the Spirit Charmers deck. Just bring it back real quick. This is definitely my favorite card that I've been able to add to it, because I genuinely didn't know that I was going to obtain any of the Link monsters, and I think that the artwork is just amazing. It's personally my favorite of the Spirit Charmers as well. But again, I'm not keeping this deck, which is why I also decided to start deck analysis with this deck. So yeah, that's it. Let's leave this here. I hope you enjoyed it, and that's gonna be it for this video. I'm out. Peace.